Yeah! You know who it is. Hey, don't ask who did it. Check the name, fool.
The associates did it, yeah, they rolling deep. The associates did it, got it out the streets. The associates did it, never miss a beat. If you heard some real ones, it was probably me.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Josh Carpenter of Carpenter Associates, and we'll go around the table. We got a couple extra guests here on top of our usual crew of nonsense, and so let's go around the table.
Yeah, still Brian Sherman. Happy to be here.
Andrew Vaughn.
Kevin Price.
And James Metcalf.
Todd Cohen's here.
And Toddy the Body's down there at the end of the table. We were trying to get video to work, and it is not working yet. And we actually changed boards for a little while, and that's not working either. So we're just kind of doing the best we can. And this is episode 5, if you guys can believe it. We are on the 5th episode already. And today's topic, we got a couple of our intake boys in here, and we're kind of talking a little bit about why you should call an attorney soon, or as soon as you can after something happens, and then also a little bit about what are the average normal questions that are asked to these guys. These guys take appointments and talk to people all day, between 16 and 20 intake calls per day, and so they've got some fun and entertaining stories, and we're going to go from there. Do we have any housekeeping that I'm forgetting?
I don't believe so.
All right, no housekeeping.
Well, yeah, Todd couldn't figure out what he's supposed to figure out, so that's step one.
That is keeping us
I'll be
rocking and
better.
rolling. All right, well, I mean, we had a good day in court today. I think firm-wide we had 5 hearings, and I believe we went 5-0 technically for those hearings this morning. So well done, Carpenter and Associates crew. And we're
just not going to mention mine, where it's basically a stalemate, so no one won.
I was just trying to
want to bring that up.
Well, we went 5-1 thanks to James.
Make the record clear.
Maybe it's important to know what those hearings were on, just to high level.
High level, let's see. We had a restraining order. That was fun. We had a restraining order. Husband kicked the wife out of the house and wasn't letting her back in, and kept all of her stuff and all of her money and all sorts of fun stuff like that. And we won that. And then we also had a temporary orders hearing where people are essentially in the process of a divorce. A temporary orders hearing is people go in for temporary orders to bind the parties during the pendency of the divorce. And so what happens is they go in and they determine who gets the money, who gets use of the house, the cars, who wants custody of the kids, who doesn't want custody of the kids. And anybody who has kids knows there's a reality of, like, sometimes you just need a break. But that's not typically what happens when it comes to kids, right?
Step in.
But I say that as a father of 7 children. I speak from experience. Sometimes you just need a break. But then some of the other hearings we had a probate hearing today and a motion to compel.
And we actually won. I don't know if you heard that feedback.
Yeah, I did. I heard that. And one of our baby attorneys just smacked the snot out of a really pandering senior attorney, which is fun to hear. By the way, for those of you who've not spent a lot of time in court, which might actually be the most of you, there can be a tendency of older attorneys, if they are unwise, to really think that just because they have a lot of age and experience under their collar, that they can just wipe the floor with younger attorneys all the time. Our younger attorney is a vicious student. And so she studies the law, the codes, and everything else, and she firmly believes, we talked about it a little bit at the last episode, the principle of the 6 Ps. Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. And she was absolutely prepared, and she knocked it out of the park. So
I'm going to take a dub for that one then, because she definitely has my old rule book that I have tabs. So I'm going to just assume that my tabs helped her out.
The Half-Blood Prince of Law.
well, maybe you should have listened to your own tabs then, James, and you would not have gotten a ruling yet.
Yeah, I have heard that a lot from older attorneys, that they actually don't like to go up against the younger attorneys because the younger attorneys are more familiar with the law. They've more recently, come out. They're more used to studying and preparing and so forth. And so it just kind of, they tend to actually be somewhat intimidated going up against the younger lawyers, but it still doesn't prevent them from kind of taking that arrogant sort of attitude and then getting their ass handed to them sometimes.
You need to talk a little bit closer to the mic, sir.
I was trying.
Thank you, Batman. But yeah, so we had a bunch of hearings today, and we are having some technical difficulties. So I joke and jest here with Andrew, but Andrew and Kevin are actually having to share a mic, and Toddy the Body and James are sharing a mic.
I'm not
and
sharing
so
anything with Todd.
they might fist fight it, but who knows? That might be an interesting fight because they both fight dirty. But no, in all seriousness, we appreciate, as always, as a brief reminder of who we are. My name is Josh Carpenter. We really haven't done this, I guess, in the last few episodes. So my name is Josh Carpenter. I am the owner and of Carpenter and Associates. I know I did not utilize a lot of creative talent in naming my law firm. But we've been open for about 22 years now, and so that's pretty exciting. It makes me feel very old, which is another reason I'm glad we're not on camera today. But I've been practicing a little bit of everything. I was a domestic violence detective and police officer before, so I kind of fell backwards into doing a lot of family law for a while and practiced just a ton of domestic violence over the years, and then kind of pulled out of that a little bit and been trying to focus a lot more on real estate and small business for the last several years. And so that's my passion right now is small business startup. I love helping people start things and get all their contracts in place and everything else. It's exciting to watch the creative process flow. And one of the reasons Kevin and Andrew are in here, Kevin actually, we stole him from another law firm, but he has a lot of marketing experience as well, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, and it comes into play with what we're talking about today. But secondarily, let's go back to Brian Sherman before my ADD kicks too much in. Brian Sherman's been practicing law for a couple of years himself.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, and Brian, just briefly introduce yourself, so
Yeah,
we'll go around the room like this.
I've been doing this for now. This month makes 25 years for me, and
Happy anniversary, sir.
yeah. So yeah, I'm here to make you feel younger, Josh. So I hope I pulled that off successfully.
Well, you got to stop being so good looking because it's actually embarrassing to me.
So my upbringing was in insurance defense work, and when you're in insurance defense work, you see a large volume of cases. And so from depositions to trials to you name it, if there's an insurance policy, a slap to it, I was involved in it. And that included every personal injury situation you can ever think of. I could tell you the funniest stories about some of the craziest situations that I've ever seen in my life. Somebody got hurt doing it, and I was there to defend it most of the time. From there, I sort of transitioned to a lot of labor and employment work, primarily on the defense side, primarily defending big Fortune 500 companies. And I use that as a way to get into the business of representing the small guy against Fortune 500 companies. And during that period of time, ended up going into doing a lot of healthcare transactional work and led that life into some in-house corporate counsel work for cloud computing companies and even in the industrial steel industry. So I feel like a jack of all trades. I've done it all. I've seen it all, but primarily focused now on civil litigation of all types, including personal injury.
And Brian also has a pretty robust practice that we have forced upon him, helping with some mergers and acquisitions as well. So he loves writing contracts. He's passionate about it. He loves fighting about contracts. And so, as a reminder, also, I don't even know the current head count of all the JDs we have at the firm right now. I think it's 31 or 32 or something like that. Everybody here is a trial attorney at one level or another, right? And so, and we also have several JDs that are not currently licensed. We've got a few foreign JDs and everything else. And so, we utilize them oftentimes for law clerk positions and things like that. And so the benefit that we have of that experience, that life experience, helps everybody here focus around a trial practice. And so what that means essentially is all of us are ready to go to court at any given moment. We negotiate, we try to mediate, we try to do things the nice way, but if we have to go to court, that's actually what all of us are pretty passionate about. We love the court process, we love being in there. To a certain extent, it's that last gladiator arena. You go in there with your own preparation, your own storyline, and you get to duke it out, and it's fun. James,
Yes.
tell us about your gigantic leprechaun self.
Well, technically, I've only been licensed in Texas since, I guess, a little over a year. But I've been licensed since 2022. First got licensed in Alabama, so I can do federal work.
Plus, he loves the banjo.
I do love the banjo. You cannot play a sad note on the banjo. Just saying. I mostly do civil litigation, so Typically, Josh hands me the cases that the other side typically does not want to start working with us. He did say that we try to negotiate, but typically if it gets handed to me, we've tried being nice, and I'm the mean one. That's just how I am.
The office goon.
Basically, yeah.
You use some Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because we've actually had some clients obviously meet me in here, and actually had one that we did a hearing on Halloween of all things, and they read my response that I did and everything else. Like, oh crap, you're going after it. It's like, yeah, why wouldn't I? Well, we saw you in your Hawaiian shirt. We thought you're kind of laid back. I was like, oh no, if I'm not in court, I'm gonna wear something more comfortable. If I'm in court, I'm dressed in the suit, and this is how I write. They were just surprised, like, oh, okay, we thought you were capable. We didn't know you were gonna be, the puncher. Yeah.
I am the law.
I mean, that's the part I enjoy, because the rules are. Andrew, you kind of mentioned it earlier that older guys typically don't read the book or haven't really popped it open. Those are the guys I love to take advantage of, because they don't know the rules anymore. They know what they learned when they first started up, and then that's where they stopped.
Right.
And so I love actually seeing opposing counsels with their little email address thing saying certified, whatever. It's like, oh, great, you're gonna come in here cocky. That's perfect for me, because you're not going to know what I'm going to hit you with, for the most part. Some actually still have maintained steady, and they're fun to go toe to toe with. That actually happened yesterday when this one guy, who obviously has done it for quite some time, he tried to finagle the judge going this way or that way, and I basically stopped and said, Judge, we're still dealing with one single statute. He's quoting B. I'm quoting subpoint A. A, as we all know, comes before B, and the judge goes, you can stop. I hear you, counsel. I'm like, okay, just making sure we're very well aware. And of course, he's all PO'd and everything else. He leaves. Okay, that's not my problem. My client's happy. That's all I care about.
So that's James in a nutshell.
Yeah,
He loves rules.
I do love rules, and I thrive on making people mad.
Andrew, however,
Yes.
is a different person. That's why we call him Andrew instead of James.
Not so, yeah, not so much about the rules, right?
Just wing it, see what happens.
Yeah, no, I've paid the penalty for that too many times. But I've been doing this for a little bit, 17 years now in the legal industry. So graduated tech in Texas Tech School of Law in 2008. Exactly. Went into oil and gas law, property law for a little while, especially during the Barnett Shale explosion in Fort Worth and that area. And then went from that to civil litigation with some technology firms that were battling out stuff in the Eastern District of Texas. And then from that to being a prosecutor, I did that for a couple of years before deciding to go into private practice, and ran my private practice with pretty varied practice in criminal defense, family law, civil litigation, probate, estate planning, up until 2019, and joined the firm here doing kind of various tasks, and eventually took over intake because I kind of figured out that I had a knack for connecting with potential clients and, identifying issues and coming up with potential solutions and, getting people signed up. And it's worked out pretty well for me and for the firm, I think. And so, yeah.
Interestingly, Andrew is moving up on his 6th-year anniversary this year.
Yeah, actually, we are 2 weeks to the day from my 6-year anniversary of my interview.
Your interview, I was in a Thanksgiving suit.
Yes.
And you thought I was a client, because no self-respecting lawyer would ever dress in a Thanksgiving suit.
Yeah, I'm sitting in the conference room and waiting for Josh Carpenter to show up, and I see this guy walk by in this multicolored. I didn't realize at the time that they were leaves, but this leaf suit, top to bottom, with yellows and golds and oranges and reds, and and I'm like, oh, well, that must be a drug dealer client.
I like to keep my audience riveted.
Yeah, and head of the cartel or something. And then, but then he came back from the lobby and said, "Hey, I'm Josh Carpenter." I was like, "Oh, all right." So, and the rest is history, I guess, from that point.
Yes, sir. Kevin, the mic is yours, my friend.
All right. I haven't been practicing too long yet. I got licensed in 21. I did a little bit of family law work for a while. My dad has a firm over in Fort Worth, so we just kind of did the father-son duo for a little bit. Eventually, I kind of wanted to try some new stuff, so I switched over to personal injury, specifically on the plaintiff side. I've handled, like Brian, almost any kind of imaginable injury that you can see. Anything from fast food place, hot food burns, to car crashes, to slip and falls, and everything in between.
I can't think of that without the Seinfeld episode of Kramer. It was supposed to be hot, not that hot.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes they come out really hot and cause some pretty severe burns. But since doing personal injury, I learned about Carpenter and Associates, and I joined the team kind of in a hybrid role. I do a lot of the intake here with Andrew, and then I also handle a lot of our personal injury cases on the plaintiff side.
Right on. Toddy,
Hey everyone.
snuggle up there next to James and get on tight there to that mic.
So I graduated from Texas Tech School of Law in 2020, and I have been working at Carpenter and Associates for about 3.5 years now. I currently serve as the operations manager here, so I help the legal department with organization and optimization, and really helping Josh around the firm keep things running smoothly and efficiently.
He's a wizard.
As such, I get to dabble in most areas of law. If anyone's unaware, our firm is a general practice firm. There are very few things we do not touch, so we like to think of ourselves as a one-stop shop. So anyway, I believe today's subject matter is about intakes and what things are wise to inform your attorneys of as you're coming into a retainer and new relationship with your attorney. Kevin, Andrew, Brian.
I was going to ask Brian a couple of questions here since he's been practicing, a couple weeks longer than a couple of these other guys. Just a couple. So Brian, like in all honesty, I mean, we've talked about this in some of the other cases that we're dealing with right now. So when should somebody, let's get to the meat of this thing. We've been talking for almost 17 minutes, right? Let's get to the meat of this episode. Yeah. When should somebody call an attorney?
So there's no written rule on this, but the sooner is usually the better. And it just also depends on the type of attorney you call. It depends on the type of person you call, and it depends on really the circumstances surrounding what your purpose is when you make that call. And I say it with all those caveats because no two situations are the same. No two car accidents are the same as no two breach of contracts are the same. There's always things that differentiate one case from another. But the key concern that I always have when somebody is new, when it's a new file, when it's a new case, is that there are things that can happen that can be to your advantage if you call an attorney right away. And there are things that could become a big disadvantage if you don't call your attorney right away. And I'll take it just simply from, let's just take a personal injury claim for example. To me, and we're dealing with this in a few cases right now, is we need to know the extent of your injury, and we need to be able to determine what the care that's going to be required of it so that we can formulate what the outcomes might be. And that's kind of a convoluted way of saying, how do we work backwards from what your maximum medical improvement might be? And so that takes potentially expert doctors, that potentially might take time and the care. But really, I say this with the one big mistake that I see a lot of people make, which is they're injured and they go to a doctor, and every doctor is required to take a history. And when they take a history, if you don't get the facts of the incident that caused the injury into the record of the doctor, that becomes something that we can attack as a defense attorney. And having a career as a defense attorney, the first thing I would do is I'd look at the medical records, and if there was no history that related to the reason why we're in this lawsuit, then I would start questioning them about it. Why was it not important enough for you to get this into the record? Why did you not think that the doctor should know that you were involved in a car accident and this happened to you? And so a lot of times people are so worried about not offending the doctor or not being a problem or taking up time that they realize there's certain things that you just need some, and I don't want to say coaching, but some directive from a lawyer to make sure that we can get the best outcome based on what happened to you. And it really comes down to contacting us soon enough so that we can give you those directives.
All right, well said.
I think also there's a big point. If you're the one being sued, don't throw it away and think it's just going to go away because you ignore it. We have taken many a client on that, and it's super not fun. It can be handled, but don't put yourself in that position.
Yeah, I think, just about in any sort of case that we're looking at, what I would tell people is that you need to be your own best advocate first. So, don't think, oh, this is going to go away. Oh, I can put it in a drawer. Don't say, yeah, I can trust this person. None of that. Because every single case that we have gets worse with age. And the longer that people sit around and wait before they contact an attorney to get some advice on how to handle something, the worse their situation is going to get, the harder it's going to be for us to dig out of whatever hole they might find themselves in. And so, but the thing is, that I hear it all the time, is people going, well, I just didn't know and didn't think and didn't this or whatever. You got to take the responsibility to be your own best advocate. So always look out for yourself. And that first step that you should take is, you know what? I need to get an attorney to talk to me about this.
Mm-hmm. Well, we run into that a lot with all sorts of different cases, right? Whether it be divorce, with personal injury, even criminal and everything else. A lot of people, for whatever reason, just don't take court paperwork seriously. And it's befuddling to me that somebody could get served. It's like constable shows up at their house or whatever, hands them paperwork, and they throw it in the trash can, or they just throw it on the back end somewhere, and they're like, oh, I don't need to worry about this for a while. It's very interesting to me. And we've had a couple of cases, even we've represented companies and individuals, actually, both of this applies, where they're not even the right people that needed to be sued.
Yeah.
It was a completely wrong party, wrong company, wrong everything, but they sat on it because, like, well, that's not my company. That's not me. So this doesn't matter. And then they get a default against them, and all of a sudden they're like, well, what do you mean I owe you $65,000? I'm like, well, you didn't answer the lawsuit. Now we have to go untangle this. He's like, well, there shouldn't be anything to untangle. Well, there is. There is something to untangle, because now we have to undo all these. And so in all of these instances, calling a lawyer sooner than later is always the best way to do it. We even had a couple of cases where the guy called in as his statute of limitations had expired on personal injury cases. And you do what you can, you try to do what you can, but at the end of the day, as Andrew was just saying, you have to kind of become your own advocate. Like, you can't just not get things taken care of and get things done. And so, Kevin, were you going to say something? I probably walked on you there. I'm sorry.
Yes, no, that's no problem. I was going to say, I think a lot of this just kind of boils down to people getting overwhelmed by the idea of everything that can go wrong. And I think a really good way to kind of fight back on that is just to talk to an attorney and figure out all the different scenarios and all the different paths you have to move forward. Just getting that knowledge does a lot to kind of lower anxiety in people who've been served some kind of paperwork.
Oh yeah, and I get it, because if you get served with papers, you have no idea what they mean. They have a bunch of legalese in there, and so you're like, well, they are saying this, they're saying that. I'm like, dude, it's okay. I know what this means. You don't. That's why you talk to me.
Right. Exactly.
I will handle this part. It's not as dire as it seems, but if you're outside the realm of law, you have no idea what these words mean on this piece of paper that you just got handed, that you're going to be sued, you're going to be found defaulted, you're going to be whatever. It's like, I have no idea. It's like, yeah, I know. That's why you call us.
Yeah, I think Kevin and I can probably both attest to this, that we talk to 15, 20, 30 people a day, and multiple times a day I'll hear people say, gosh, I thank you so much. It's like, I understand now kind of what I'm facing. I can calm down. I can breathe. I hear it all the time, because people, just they get so worked up about whatever might be going on, but they just are too scared to ask the questions and to talk to somebody who can answer those questions. But when they finally do, sometimes they find out, hey, your situation's not as bad as what you thought it was, and or your situation is worse than what you thought it was, but we have a plan to fix it, and people feel almost, without exception, people feel much better after they've had that opportunity to talk to somebody and get some answers about what's going on.
There's another thing that is important, is that evidence can disappear. Videos can be erased, documents can be lost, people can move. And so there is an an element of time in all of this, and it doesn't have to be a personal injury. It could be a civil dispute. It could be anything where there's records or things that need to be requested and looked at, spoliation of evidence, letters sent to preserve those things. And you certainly don't want to lose the right to obtain those documents. And moreover, once a lawyer sends out those letters to preserve those things, if they do in fact destroy them or dispose of them, you get an argument in front of a jury that says, hey, we might have had better information, but for the fact that they destroyed all this information, and inferences can be made against them in those cases since they destroyed those documents. So finding a lawyer that's sooner than later puts you in a better spot in terms of the evidence that needs to be put together.
And I'm sorry, Josh.
I was going to say one more directly along those lines. It's not just the evidence. One of the things that people don't realize, and as you go down, you've done lots of different jury trials, and you've had people on direct and cross and everything else. People don't realize oftentimes that their memories change. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, that doesn't happen. It happens. It is a fundamental misunderstanding and falsehood to believe that somebody who is a witness is going to remember and recall something exactly as it happened 3 years ago.
Right.
It doesn't happen that way. And, you know, when I was a police officer, we used to joke around all the time when we came up to a traffic accident. Like if you had 5 people, 5 witnesses to this accident, you were going to have 5 versions of what happened at that accident. But if you were to take all those witness statements, go down the road 4 years, and you talk to all 5 of those witnesses again and ask about their opinion of what happened at that car crash, they will have completely, more often than not, they will have completely different stories about what happened in that accident, and because their memories have changed. And it's a matter of, as time goes on, your brain just kind of puts puzzle pieces together and things like that, and makes things what it thinks are easier ways to remember. And what ends up happening is you have fundamental changes in your memories. And if anybody's bored, you can study about this in psychology and everything. But the reality is like colors change, witnesses, other people change. Things that were major at the time that never happened, like, oh, I was talking to Andrew in the car, and then somebody ran the red light and hit us, and then you actually go back and Andrew wasn't in the car, and you weren't the one that got hit; it was somebody else, and it can be that substantial of a change, and so you need to make sure that you get statements and witnesses and pictures and videos and anything that you can get.
Yeah.
Take the pictures,
Yeah.
get the evidence together.
And to go along with that, because of that, almost every single personal injury case that I handle, I make the client go back and start a timeline and start writing everything down and journaling everything from anything, pain and suffering, how you felt that day, did you sleep at night, who did you speak to, what did they say, what doctors have you seen. It needs to be specific. Who spoke to you about this case? Mm-hmm. Who was there? And a detailed chronology is invaluable, not just to the attorney, but to the client later on if they have to prepare for a deposition or for trial.
I'm going to take that one step further. That's actually almost a mandatory thing we do on every case, by the way, whether it's civil, family, criminal, personal injury, whatever the case may be. Family law is really important this way too, right? The family law, you can sit down and, oh, we were arguing about this, we were arguing about that. Right? Well, I need you to make a timeline. Like you need to set up a timeline. Who was there? What exactly happened? What kind of pictures do you have? Everything else.
Save all your texts.
All your text should be saved. Everything should be saved. And the reason why is at the end of the day, we just have to make sure what really happened because people's memories change. And so we've literally had people on video like, I never did that. And then there's a video of them doing that thing that they swore they never did. And so the chronology on every case,
You.
That's all I'm Josh.
people need to create a timeline. They need to get all their facts together, irrespective of whatever type of case. And so we're going to turn the time over to you guys a little bit more here, but I think that's actually one of the lost arts that a lot of attorneys, and I'm glad Brian brought that up, a lot of attorneys forget to have people do that, and they just go into this case and they're like, meh. And then what happens later down the road is oftentimes the client's like, well, Brian, I wanted you to bring this up. Well, how would I know that? Mm-hmm. Well, you should have known. How would I know?
Yeah.
And you just keep going and keep going. And so that's one of the things I want to ask you guys about. You guys, like you guys just said, you guys speak to anywhere between 20 plus people a day on average. about different types of legal questions and legal crises that they're going through and everything else. So we know that the answer is you should call an attorney basically as soon as humanly possible, right? We talked a little bit in one of the last episodes of how to pick an attorney and everything else. Obviously, we want you to pick us, but the reality is a lot of this depends on personalities and types of law and everything else, right? So what are the questions that you guys get frequently asked and bombarded with that we could kind of give people a heads up and say, all right, this is what you need to be prepared for? Because once again, I hate to be the huge nerd in the room. I usually am the biggest nerd in the room, at least in junior high and high school I always was, I suppose, right? But psychologically, people fear the unknown, right? And that's why I joke with my kids, especially all the time, like, oh, you're not afraid of the dark. You're afraid of what might be in the dark, right? And it's the same thing with legal cases or life in general. People aren't afraid of most things. They're afraid of the unknown. If they don't know what to expect, if they feel blind going into a situation, that fear of the unknown can be paralyzing because they have no idea what's going to happen. And especially in a legal realm, all they have to do is they have TV and movies and things like that, which are so far from reality most of the time that it's hard to kind of distinguish the two from what really happens. And so you guys tell us, like, what are the clients talking to? What are their biggest fears and the things that they're bringing to you more often than not?
Step 1, don't use Chat GPT. We can tell. Despite what you believe, we can tell when you use it, and so do the courts.
Right. I guess, well, I mean, obviously one of the biggest issues that people have is cost, and what it takes to get into a case, or to get representation. And, this is, I guess it's every attorney's dream to be able to sign up nobody but, people that can pay the $10,000 retainers and stuff like that. And, and there's a lot of, I guess there's a lot of people out there, at least the feedback that I get is that there's a lot of attorneys out there that's all they're looking for. I had a couple of people today that I talked to who said, you know what, I can't actually talk to you right now, but you're the first person who answered the phone like a normal human being, as opposed to just starting off with, well, what do you do for a living and how much money do you make? And
Those are still valid questions, though.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that they're not,
A little
but
preamble first.
right.
I'm a drug dealer. Then we're going to deal with cash. All right, that's okay.
Yeah, right. But at least most of the people that we talk to, I mean, that's one of their concerns is we hear all the time, oh, I can't afford an attorney. Well, let's talk about what's going on first, And so we get into the facts of what's going on with their case, and then we say, okay, so, what have you been hearing from other people you've talked to? And they'll say, oh, well, $7,500, $10,000, $15,000, whatever. And,
$1 million.
there's occasionally the time when I'll have to say, well, actually, it should be $25,000, but on some criminal cases or whatever.
Yeah, they had it right, man.
That's what it's going to take.
I've actually told people that before, like, oh, you found somebody to take this for $1,500?
Right.
All right, man, you should run to that person and good luck to you.
Well, actually, that brings up another point that I'll get to in just a second. But one of the things that I like here is that we have the flexibility to be able to come up with solutions and retainer agreements and everything that, that don't necessarily require people to break the bank or take out huge loans or something like that in order to get started, and we have that philosophy that, people deserve to have representation when they're going into into a courtroom and not have to face this stuff alone. And so we more so than most firms out there, I think, make that possible for a lot of people, and that's pretty cool. But one of the things, that I think I would caution people about is the attorneys who are not charging enough. I've had people who I'll talk to about a family case or divorce or a child custody thing or, even criminal defense or whatever. And they'll say, oh, that $2,500, that's a little too much for me. I found somebody that's going to do this for $400 and, and everything. I was like, you're going to pay that person $400 and you're never going to see them again. All they're looking for is to be to be able to pay their next light bill or to pay their next country club bill or something like that. And they're
somebody's charging $400 for a case. They're living in their car.
Right, exactly. I mean, they're not about to actually do work on your case. You're going to pay them that and they're going to disappear. And, and then you're going to be in a worse situation because now you no longer have the $400 to put towards some other money to actually hire somebody who's going to work on your case. So, I generally will tell people if they give me the opportunity to, where they say, oh, well, someone said they can do this for blah, 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 or a flat fee of $1,500 for an entire divorce with 5 kids and abuse and everything else going on. No, that's not what you want to do, because that person's going to just screw you over, basically.
Well, there really is a division. I mean, I wish people could see. Maybe we could figure out a way to post this with this episode, Todd. I have a picture that used to be in my lobby. It's in one of our conference rooms now, and it's a picture of the first part of the picture is this beautiful horse, like beautiful artist rendition of a horse, and then there's a caption that says, "When clients ask you if you can do it cheaper." And then the horse then slowly morphs into a stick figure drawing of a horse, right? And there's a lot of truth to that, because whether anybody ever wants to explain it or not, like attorneys they're put in a position where they have to value their time. Not only do they have to pay for the ridiculous costs of law school and malpractice insurance and rent and advertising and everything else. And I think we covered a little bit, like everything, when people find out you're an attorney, they just ratchet up the cost of stuff. 10 to 25% easily. You want to go rent in a building? Oh, fantastic. Brian, we'd love to have you in this building. Our rent somehow is $10 a square foot more than your neighbors down the hall.
Right.
That just moved in. And so, and I wish I was joking a little bit more about that, but for real, like everything is more expensive as an attorney, right? And so obviously those costs have to get passed on. Obviously our time in law school and time in experience and everything else gets passed on to a certain extent to the client. And it's hard to explain to people like, oh, I would love to help you for $500. Like, I understand that might be all you have in this world and everything else, but literally we can't do that.
Right.
Because a lot of these cases that you hop in, unless you're just going to do them pro bono, like for real, you're going to hop in a case and you're going to be upside down, and you can arguably put a client in a worse position than they would have been in just handling it themselves.
Well, no, and that goes back to the topic of why you should call your attorney early on, is because if you sit on a case, and I actually dealt with this today. I have a client that has a Department of Labor audit going on in California, and he sat on it, tried to handle it himself, and he's completely messed it up, and to his detriment. And I called the deputy investigator in California today, had some conversations with her, and there's going to be a ton of work to try to unwind what he's already screwed up. And so, again, sitting on these cases, if he had contacted us sooner, not only would he be in a better position, but the amount of hours I'm going to have to stick on this to get him back to some sort of neutral on this is probably a lot more than it would have been if he had come to us in the beginning.
Oh yeah, like especially when it comes to being a defendant, if you just simply put a plain Jane answer that just says, "I disagree," the court will read that as like, all right, we'll see that as a general denial. It's close enough. Just doing that right there makes it be a real case. You doing nothing now requires me to basically ask for a motion to trial, to set aside default, to then maybe get an answer, motion for leave, all this stuff. Whereas simply saying, hey, attorney, what do I do? Well, if you can't afford me, I would advise you to do a general denial. What is that? I would just Google it.
Right.
Because, I mean, if you're not willing to pay me, I get it, but I'll give you this free advice, because if you want to not have a lawsuit that just says whatever they say is true because you didn't file an answer, well, now you're in a whole heap of mess, and it could be for thousands of dollars.
Right. I actually had a client that I took on one time who they had been served just 4 days prior to a hearing, and they were just completely blindsided, with this situation, and so they show up at the hearing, and and it's Well, I guess the situation was that they did not have, they hadn't filed an answer, they hadn't done anything yet. They were on the verge of being defaulted, and they found out that the default hearing was like 3 days later. Didn't have anybody that they could hire to get in there at that time. And so they called me like the morning of the hearing. I said, look, go there, give them a piece of notebook paper or something that just says, I disagree with this or whatever. And the judge actually did accept that as an answer. I'm like, look, judges are going to take anything that they can as an answer,
right?
And then that will buy you time to then hire an attorney and come in and handle the case appropriately. And then, as it turned out, they had all kinds of counterclaims and everything else that they needed to assert against this person, which we were fortunately able to get leave of the court to do. But that just being able to file that kind of bought that time and that opportunity for them to at least avoid that default. So taking that little bit of action, at least helps to, versus just sitting there and sitting on your hands and not doing anything.
Yeah, at least stall the case to where now we can start seeing what does both sides have.
Right.
Right.
All right. Well, our time is coming to an end for this particular episode. We're going to be exploring a lot more with Kevin and Andrew, and we're going to have, obviously, they're literally across the hall from our little studio here, so we're going to be harassing them quite a bit as the podcast continues forward. But again, if anybody has any questions for lawyers and everything, at some point it'd be great to start getting in some submissions from people to be like, hey, what questions can we answer, and what can we help from you guys, or what can we help answer for you guys? We're happy to do that. We're not a radio show per se, so we can't like call the hotline and we'll be on with you. That's not what we're going to be doing. But
that's a different phone number.
Yeah, but regardless, it'd be great if we could start answering some questions. So if you're listening to this, and we'll reach out to all of our friends, family, and other listeners, and see if they can submit some questions that we could read. But this is a work in progress for us too. But the reality is this is our attempt to kind of reach out to people and make the process of hiring a lawyer, make the process of life just a little bit less convoluted and less scary. The reality is the hot button points here are pretty simple, right? If something happens in your life, call a lawyer. That's really it. I mean, obviously call the police or whatever if that's what it entails, but shortly thereafter you need a lawyer in your life. And I hate to even admit that that's the type of society that we are in, but that's absolutely the type of society that we're in, right? And so call a lawyer, and if you're really scared and you're trying to figure things out, call a lawyer. If you don't know what to do and you're hurt, or you don't know what to do and you get paper served, call a lawyer. Don't sit on it. Don't wait. Don't do any of the things that we've talked about, because it's just going to complicate your life a little bit more. And when you call in and talk to lawyers, make sure you're comfortable with them, but also make sure you actually ask the questions that you need to know, like the answers that you're looking for. And secondarily, we'll cover this on another podcast, but don't lie to us.
Right.
Yes. Do not.
Tell us the truth about what happened and what's going on, because
We'll find out eventually.
and it's usually on the stand in trial when we find out if you've lied, and that's a lot of no bueno. We call that.
Yeah, and literally on that point, I had a guy I talked to yesterday on a criminal case, and he kept kind of him-hawing around about what it was and everything. And I was like, he said, well, this is one of those things where people just don't like to, sometimes defend people charged with this. And I was like, I don't care. Tell me what it is and what happened.
Yeah.
And it's like, I am the person you tell, because if you don't tell me, then it's just going to get worse for you.
Yeah, and all of us have done criminal defense at one point or another, and one of the things that people ask me all the time is, I saw on TV. You already know it's going to be bad thing. I saw
A friend
on TV.
of mine.
Yeah.
Somebody told me, and what's really going on is Google or ChatGPT told me. But we should do a whole episode on AI and Google, by the way, and we're just going to let Brian run with the whole
I've
episode.
had a lot of fun with that lately.
When people are kind of giving you that heads up of somebody told me this or somebody told me that, don't believe it.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, we don't really care what everybody else has. Each case is very, very specific, and people will ask, well, Josh, do you really want to know if they did it? Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've never met an attorney, honestly, maybe you guys have. I've never met a single attorney that does criminal law that says, I did not want to know if he actually did it. That's the silliest thing I've ever heard in my life. How are you supposed to formulate a defense? How are you supposed to help your client unless you actually have the facts as they actually happen? And so that's That's crazy to me. But who knows? I could probably have some 40-year master lawyer out there like, you never ask your client if they did it. You know, who knows? But I know all lawyers are different. We're all particular. We have different ways of doing things. But I guess that's just the gospel according to Josh on that one. But all right, well, we are out of time for tonight. We're going to try to keep kicking these out a couple episodes a week to get this up and going. The technology hopefully will continue to get better. The software will get better, and hopefully we will get better. And
we'll see.
We keep going from there. So, Brian, Andrew, Kevin, Todd, James, and this is Josh. We're signing off tonight. Appreciate you guys. Take care.